I don't know about you, but I'll be happy when people finally shut up about Twilight. Putting aside the pedophilia and implied rape issues, it just gets vampires wrong. Vampires are undead creatures of the night, predators who feed on the blood of the living, who burn to a crisp in sunlight, not vegetarian glitter boys. In my opinion, the only people that get it right are the folks at White Wolf, the publishers who brought pretentious goth back to tabletop gaming with their Vampire the Masquerade role-playing game. Naturally, a system as rich as this was going to spawn a video game or two. The first game was Vampire the Masquerade Redemption, but I'll cover that in another review. This time we're going to look at the more recent Bloodlines. This title didn't fare well on its release, getting mixed reviews and subpar sales, but I still rate it as a great game for a few good reasons. 1. The story is dark, mature, and well developed. 2. The characters are memorable with great voice acting. And 3. There's a lot of choice to how to play the game, and thus more replay value. Our story begins in Los Angeles with your character getting turned into a bloodsucker. By the way, when's the last time you played an RPG where it was actually your character and not some guy the story was loaning you? But before you can ask what the crap, you and your sire are staked and put on trial by the local vampire government, the Camarilla. Apparently making new vampires without asking permission is a no-no.
Let the penalty commence.
Your sire loses their head and it's about to be your turn until the prince decides it'd be smarter to make you an errand boy, and gives you a mission before dumping you out in the alley. In said alley you meet Smiling Jack, and yes, that's John DiMaggio, the voice of Bender from Futurama, serving as your tutorial friend. He tells you the do's and don'ts of your new unlife.
You can still be destroyed, but forget the books and the movies. Garlic? Worthless. A cross? Pfft, shove it right up their ass. A steak? Only if it catches you in the heart, then it just paralyzes. Running water? That's no problem. I bathe. Occasionally.
Man, what if he had done the voice of Navi from Zelda? After getting used to the awkward third and first-person camera system, the game turns into your standard RPG gameplay. Find odd jobs for money and experience, and follow the main plot at some point. So, what is the main plot? Basically, it's a vampire turf war. The dictatorial but somewhat effective Camarilla only recently took over LA, and the local independent faction, Anarchs, aren't too happy. On top of that, the monstrous Sabbat vampire faction wants to hit the city walls weak. At the center of this all seems to be a mysterious sarcophagus recently arrived in the city, supposedly linked to old legends of Gehenna, the vampire apocalypse. There's a lot more to it than that, obviously, but I don't want to spoil any of the twists. Yeah, I know I gave away the plot in the Farcry review, but there's a real story in this game. Character creation is a bit sticky on your first go, but once you figure everything out, there's a lot of choice in where you can focus your skills. You've got choices for combat ranging from bare fist brawling to gunplay, social skills like seduction and intimidation to get characters to do what you want, and stealth and infiltration. You have 7 vampire clans to choose from, each with a distinct set of disciplines for further customization. Powers ranging from super speed to shape-shifting and even mind control and invisibility. The Tremere clan are the closest you get to mages with their blood magic tricks. 2 clans, the Malkavians and Nosferatu, will alter the entire game for you. Nosferatu are hideously misshapen ghouls, whose very appearance breaks the masquerade.
Oh, sweet Jesus!
So you'll rely on stealth and sewer travel to avoid humans. Malkavians are cursed with insanity, making dialogue difficult, and you routinely hear voices in your head or have arguments with street signs. The game world is broken up by area hubs, sort of like an Elder Scrolls game, but without the freedom to explore. You can check street signs and sewer maps for locations, kind of like the good old Silent Hill games, but why didn't they just give you a map button in your inventory? When you go into a building, you have to stare at a short load screen, which breaks the game flow somewhat. There's also a real variety of settings and scenarios you find yourself in. Stealing werewolf blood from a hospital, fighting a serial killer who uses a decapitated arm as a weapon, cleansing a haunted hotel, infiltrating a mafia/necromancer lair, stopping a mad plague-spreading vampire cult, escaping an angry werewolf in the middle of a forest fire. There's just a lot for you to do, and only half of those are required for the main plot. The downside to this is because there's so much variety, some areas aren't as well polished as they could be. The haunted hotel is very well done and atmospheric, and it still gives me the chills, but others aren't so much. The Nosferatu sewer levels go on forever without enough different areas or textures to keep it interesting. And this is a big combat area, so the long stretch of fighting will wear on you. The sheer number of different scenarios makes it a bit tricky to know what to expect and be ready for, but I find that's part of the appeal. In an attempt to break up the usual good or evil standards of RPG morality systems, I'm looking at you, BioShock, you have two important concepts to keep in mind while playing: humanity and the Masquerade. The Masquerade is the basic rule modern vampires live by. Don't let humans know you're a vampire.
It's why the wolf doesn't want the sheep to know he's there. It's also why you don't go juggling dumpsters or outrun the 815 from Sacramento. Keep our secret secret and you make things easier on all of us. We're living in the age of cell phone cameras. Fuck-ups ain't tolerated.
Show off your fancy vampire abilities in public too often or get caught feeding, and you risk getting discovered by vampire hunters. The game gives you plenty of chances to make up for your mistakes, like silencing witnesses or stealing evidence. Humanity, on the other hand, is tied to your character's behavior and choices. Since you've basically turned into an undead monster, you're struggling to keep in touch with the human you once were. You're faced with simple choices like stealing a box of charity donations to pad your pocket or rescuing a captive, and then there are some harder choices like reassuring a dying woman in her last moments or redeeming a murdering psycho. The characters of Bloodlines are easily the most memorable in any game I've played. Beckett is snide but smooth.
I can't understand why someone would go through the trouble of stealing a box with a very ancient corpse. This city's not that dull.
Smiling Jack always has something interesting to say.
Every time I yank a jawbone from a skull and ram it in an eye socket, I know I'm building a better future.
And Fat Larry is a riot.
The ladies call me, oh God, but you can call me Fat Larry with a F-A-T, cause I know I got a weight problem, I just don't give a fuck.
Prince LaCroix is also a very interesting character. Right from the start, you're given no reason to like him since you're his slave, and it's easy to see him being the bad guy at the end. As the story unfolds, he becomes more controlling, scheming, and temperamental, but at the same time, he shows some good qualities. He wants to fulfill his duties as prince and keep the city from being torn apart. He's the best kind of bad guy, a person you can imagine yourself liking until he tries to cut your throat. As much as I talk about the pros of this game, there are still plenty of negative points. The game was the first non-Half-Life title to use the Source graphics engine, and sadly it doesn't make the best use of it, probably owing to a lack of production time. Physics are tossed in like breakable vents and throwable debris, but it feels stiff and artificial. The lip sync and movement of some characters is off, especially for ones that try to be really expressive like Jack and Baldy here. A lot of people also seem to have issues with the ending being anticlimactic. I personally found it satisfying enough, but it basically boils down to 5 endings, which basically come down to 2 boss fights, and then there are only 3 deviations in gameplay, just different cutscenes tying them together. I also have to add that the combat system won't be for everyone. Your 3 main choices are fists, melee weapons, and guns. Close-range fighting is clunky. If you do a 3-hit combo on an enemy, they fly back and fall down. Which is handy in groups, but really annoying in solo fights, because you have to wait for them to get back up before you can hit them again. And though the graphics engine was built for a first-person shooter, gunplay has been stunted by the RPG item scaling system, where the items you start off with are crap, and the ones you get at the end of the game are portable death machines. Sometimes I get sick of it and just cheat to start the game with a Desert Eagle. A quick word on the stealth system. It works alright, but it takes a while to master. There are only a couple of scenarios where stealth is required because you're not supposed to kill anyone, so it's not necessary, but it makes fighting on your terms easier, and gives way to the stealth kill system. Basically, if you can sneak up behind an enemy with your bare hands or a melee weapon equipped, you can dispose of them quietly. The best part is that different weapons have different animations, some of them outright hilarious. And now a personal complaint. What the hell is wrong with the save system? You can make your basic save files, but you get a huge number of auto and quick saves. It's overkill. Now let's look at the save system for Half-Life 2. A couple autosaves, 2 quick saves, and each file has a picture to remind you of where you are and what you were doing. Why couldn't they do that here? Saving the game also takes a lot longer the further you get into the game, so that's another annoyance. The chief complaints at the game's release time were the bugs and bad animations, which you'll see plenty of. This was more the fault of the producers than the developers. Troika Games made some fantastic RPGs in the past, including Arcanum, and lead developer Timothy Kane was the lead designer on Fallout. Activision was under contract not to release the game until after Half-Life 2 came out, but they still gave Troika a deadline more than a month before that release date. Why? The game only sold 72,000 copies, and Troika closed their doors early the next year. So the official game is buggy with the odd crash, even after patching. But amazingly enough, people have been working on this game for the last 4 years. If you can stand venturing over to, GameSpy, check out Planet Vampire for patches and updates, and they'll provide a link to the latest version of the unofficial update project. These folks have made some significant improvements and fixes to the game, including restoring lost dialogue, polishing up some areas that needed help, and some extra custom content. I'd suggest playing through with the official patch first, then trying it with a fan update on the next playthrough. So underneath all the bugs and unfinished gameplay, there's a very pure and unique RPG in Bloodlines. It's one of the few games where the M for mature rating is so accurate. It's a mature game for mature gamers, dealing with dark concepts, sex, and death, but treats them as they are, not getting overly graphic or exploitive, just honest. I honestly can't think of another RPG I found this memorable in the last 5 years, and I'm counting stuff like BioShock and Mass Effect here. The best place to find the game now is on Steam, which saves you the trouble of juggling the 3 CDs to install. It's obviously not going to be for everyone because of the vampire theme, but it at least deserves a look. And if you played it before, check it out again with the patches and updates applied.
Sweet city sweat, vampire love, crimson flows down from the wings of a dove, floating over the pavement, guitars take flight, wearing my tightest pants because it's midnight. Heart of a lion and the wings of a bat. Me, I got the heart of a lion and the wings of a bat.
Whether or not you win the game matters not. It's if you bought it.